A young woman in a LOL sweatshirt and her hands covered in baby oil walks rapidly toward a middle-aged man who is about to board a direct flight to Macau from Kuala Lumpur International Airport. She walks right up to him from behind, smears the oil with both of her hands on his face, and runs away with a notorious smile. In a split second, another woman does the same, and both run away hop-skipping like it was some harmless public prank. But within 20 minutes of this prank, the man would collapse and die. These two young women have just assassinated the brother of the most brutal dictator of North Korea, Kim Jong Un. But if the oil was deadly enough to kill with a split-second touch, why didn't the girls drop dead the moment they handled it? And what does Disneyland have to do with any of this? On February 13, 2017, the elder half-brother of North Korean dictator Kim Jong Un, Kim Jong Nam, arrived at Kuala Lumpur International Airport. Around 8:50 a.m. in the morning, he approached a self-check-in kiosk to board his 10:50 a.m. flight to Macau. Within 10 minutes, around 9 a.m., two assassins attacked him by surprise with an oily substance and ran away. For the first few minutes, he didn't think he was dying. He believed he was a victim of a rude but harmless oil prank. He walked over to an airport security personnel, explaining that he had just been attacked by two women with an alleged oily substance and requested medical assistance. The security personnel walked Kim Jong Nam to the airport clinic. By this time, he could walk, talk, and breathe normally. But internally, his nervous system had already started to shut down. Meanwhile, the two women rushed to two separate bathrooms to scrub their hands frantically. But for a toxin this deadly, soap and water shouldn't have been enough. So how were they still alive? And how they walked right into the highly secure terminal with a deadly oil and bypassed all security checks? You see, the Terminal 2 where the attack took place was an open public area. Anyone could enter the building from the taxi drop-off point. The first layer of security was beyond the self-check-in kiosks. This way, they avoided all scanner detections. They somehow knew the precise place to attack before Kim Jong Nam got to the safety beyond security layers. The assassins were so smart that not only they managed to time the attack precisely, but the deadly liquid they carried would not have raised any suspicion even during a random manual security inspection. Because this oily liquid was a ghost. It didn't have the chemical profile of a bomb or an illicit substance. In fact, it was designed to hide in plain sight as something as mundane as a 50 milliliter bottle of a moisturizer. And by keeping the lethal substance separate from the oil, they ensured that no single sensor in the terminal would ever scream danger. In fact, this plot was so genius that not only the lethal agent was separate from the oil, it wasn't even in possession of the assassin. So who were these highly trained assassins disguised as normal-looking tourists, and what they gained by this assassination? The plot for this high-level assassination started just a few months before in December of 2016. In the streets of Hanoi, Vietnam, 28-year-old Duan Thi Huang, an aspiring actress and model, is approached by a man calling himself Mr. Y. He claimed to be a TV producer for a media company and mentioned they were about to launch a new YouTube prank show. He added they were looking for a talented actor just like Miss Huang who had the confidence and just the right skills required for the show. Miss Huang had already appeared in the Vietnam Idol and had gracefully handled multiple modeling shoots in the past. She was young, a bit naive, and a small-town girl with big dreams. A perfect target for psychological manipulation. For Miss Huang, the job was simple. Find a target in busy streets, either smear their face with a liquid or kiss them on the cheeks, apologize, and run away. A pretty harmless prank. And in return, she will receive $100 per successful prank, which means if in a day she completes 10 pranks, she makes $1,000 a day. For Miss Huang, this was a big break in her life. She agreed to the terms and her training began the next day. Mr. Y booked a hotel room, and Miss Wang was required to arrive at the hotel each day for her training. A mannequin was placed in the room, and upon instructions, Miss Wang had to sneak up to the doll from behind, cover its eyes with both hands in a peekaboo fashion, and run away. This way, she could reinforce her tactical approach and train her muscle memory so that her hands land exactly as directed by her trainers. She learned the prank quickly, and the training was moved to now pranking actual people in the streets. For weeks, she pranked multiple people with baby oil and other silly pranks, making thousands of dollars each day. Mr. Y was so impressed by her acting, he increased her pay to $200 per prank. A young model who could barely make ends meet was now making money like a TV star. Little did she know, this young artist was being turned into a human delivery system for one specific high-stakes task. But as the handlers knew all too well, it takes two to tango. While Wang was perfecting her peekaboo technique in Hanoi, the operation was still incomplete. To pull off a strike of this magnitude in a crowded international airport, one actress wasn't enough. They needed a second player to complete the mission. Another recruiter named James, 1,500 miles away in the neon-lit night markets of Kuala Lumpur, was hunting for his own star. Her name was Siti Aisyah. Siti was a 25-year-old Indonesian national and a single mother who had left her country in search for a better life in Malaysia. She worked as an masseuse at a local spa, earning just enough to send money back home to her young son. Unlike Miss Wang, James did not approach her with the promise of big stardom. He pitched her extra income. Because for Miss Wang, it was a question of fame, but for Siti, it was about a mother's struggle. Similar to Mr. Y's pitch, James met Siti at a local bar, mentioning he was a producer for a Japanese prank show. He offered her $90 for just a few minutes of a funny prank. For a spa worker, that was nearly a week's wage. Unlike Miss Wang, Siti didn't need the elaborate hotel rehearsals. In a twist of dark irony, her profession made her the perfect recruit. As a professional masseuse, she already had the training to apply herbal oils to the skin effectively, and she went directly on the field pulling successful pranks from day one. Choosing Miss Wang and Siti was not an accident. It was a calculated choice. The handlers knew one is hungry for fame and money, and the other would do whatever it takes to make the ends meet. By the end of January 2017, the training was complete, and the LOL assassins were ready for their final mission. On the morning of February 13, 2017, Wang, Siti, their two handlers, and two more handlers arrived at Kuala Lumpur Terminal 2. Siti is ordered to go and wait in a small cafe area at the terminal and wait. Meanwhile, Wang is instructed to wait at another sandwich joint. The handlers of both women right outside the airport acquired the alleged baby oil that would ultimately be used in the final prank. The handlers had these oils in very mundane-looking below 100 milliliters bottle that could easily bypass a random check. But there was an important rule. Both bottles cannot touch each other. They can't even be in close proximity. The bottles handled by two separate handlers enter the airport, and each handler goes to the two separate fast food joints where Siti and Wang were instructed to wait. Around 8:40 a.m., Kim Jong Nam arrived at the terminal, checked his flight schedule, and started heading toward a self-check-in kiosk. James, Siti's handlers, saw Kim Jong Nam and instructed her that the overweight man in that gray suit and jeans was today's prank victim. He also stated that this prank is so grand that she will have another prankster, Wang, that will smear the oil on his face at the exact same time for extra effects. So they have to approach the guy simultaneously. Meanwhile, at the other cafe in the same terminal, Wang was instructed the same. James orders Siti to present her hands and pours the oily liquid on her palms and instructs her to not let the oil touch her face or clothes, have to execute the prank instantly, and run as quickly as possible to the predetermined bathrooms and wash everything quickly. Almost simultaneously, Wang is also prepared for the prank. By this time, Kim Jong Nam was at the kiosk checking himself in for the flight. CD gets up and starts approaching Kim Jong Nam from the front side. Hwang in her LOL sweatshirt starts approaching him from the back. Hwang and CD grabs Kim's face, smears the liquid, and both run away. The two different oils carried by two different women, when combined on Kim Jong Nam's face, they immediately turned into a toxic VX nerve agent, one of the most deadliest substances on Earth. The individual precursor A and precursor B on the hands of CD and Hwang were toxic, but not fatal immediately. That's why they didn't drop dead on the spot. These women weren't just the assassins, they were the mixing chambers. By using a binary version of the toxin, the handlers solved the two biggest problems of the mission: avoiding random security checks and keeping their delivery systems alive long enough to finish the job. The girls had a very narrow safety window. That's why the handlers chose two different bathrooms to wash off the chemicals, because even if they accidentally had come in contact again in the same bathroom, both women could have lost their lives too. Even though they did momentarily get in touch during the attack, however, the skin on the palm is much thicker, they still had a safe window by washing off everything as quickly as possible. After the prank, both women exit the terminal, get inside a taxi, and leave the area. But for Kim Jong Nam, the window had already closed. Within 20 minutes of the attack, his nervous system shut down, and he sadly passed away. But for Kim Jong Un, this was the moment of celebration. He had eliminated his brother, who once had a right to the North Korean throne. But why would a younger half-brother kill his older brother, who was first in line to the North Korean regime? The answer was his love for the Western culture that his father, Kim Jong Il, couldn't tolerate. In 2001, Kim Jong Nam was caught at Tokyo's Narita airport on a fake Dominican passport. He just wanted to visit Japan so that he could see Disneyland and meet Mickey Mouse. His reason to go to Japan on a fake passport was such an international embarrassment to North Korea that his family immediately disowned him and removed his right to the throne. Since then, he was living in exile, mostly in Macau, and second in line, Kim Jong Un was handed over the North Korean regime. And he could not tolerate the fact that his brother loves Mickey Mouse, supports capitalism, and therefore he needs to go away for the good. And since then, Kim Jong Un was on the hunt for his brother, and they finally figured out the way to ultimately end him. CD and Hwang had no idea that they would become the central figures in one of the most audacious political assassinations of the 21st century. For them, it was just a YouTube prank, but for the world, it was a crime punishable by death. The four North Korean handlers after the prank vanished like ghosts and were already 30,000 feet heading back to the safety of Pyongyang. Innocent Hwang, excited for the next video and to receive the money from the previous prank, arrives back at the airport looking for Mr. Y and is arrested on the spot on the charges of killing the brother of a supreme leader. CD is also arrested the next day from her apartment as well. Innocent CD was still thinking getting arrested was part of a prank, and she happily cooperated with the authorities. For the next 2 years, CD and Hwang were the only ones facing the gallows. While the actual architects of the hit were safe in North Korea, the two women were put on trial in Malaysia, facing a mandatory death sentence. The prosecution argued they were highly trained killers who knew exactly what they were doing. But as the defense peeled back the layers, the technical truth began to emerge. Surveillance footage showed the women's genuine confusion, their lack of gloves, their immediate rush to wash their hands, and their total lack of an escape plan proved they were just useful idiots in a game they didn't understand. But surprisingly, in March of 2019, the charges suddenly dropped. CD Asia was released after intense diplomatic pressure from the Indonesian government. A few weeks later, Duan Thi Huang pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of causing injury and was released for time served. The assassination of Kim Jong Nam wasn't just a political hit. It was a demonstration of chemical and psychological engineering. They used the most basic human vulnerabilities: a girl's dream of fame and a mother's need for money, and turned them into a trained binary weapon to eliminate a man who just had a dream to visit Disneyland.